Welcome to the Resource Podcast, where we take a slightly sassy, fully feminist approach to creating healthy relationships and a joyful life. I'm your host, Tatiana Thompson, and I'm a licensed professional counselor practicing in both Arizona and Minnesota. I specialize in applying clinically proven techniques like EMDR, parts work, and neural reprogramming to help you see real, lasting change in your everyday life. Just remember, I am a licensed therapist, but I'm not your therapist. This show is for informational purposes only, and it's not a replacement for seeking personal mental health or medical advice. So join me now as we explore simple strategies for breaking toxic relationship patterns and applying simple mental health tools to your daily life. Learn how to take the small steps today that will guide you to your best life tomorrow. Hello and welcome to the Resource Podcast, the show that invites you to question everything you thought you knew about relationships and mental health so you can finally break through your stuck points and create the life you've always wanted. I'm your host, Tatiana, and I am on a mission to help 1,000 women become emotionally and financially independent so they can choose a relationship instead of needing one. And I am so excited to continue this discussion on narcissism. In the last episode, I covered lots of foundational components. So if you haven't listened, be sure to go check it out. Maybe pause this and then come back and listen to this one because it will teach you a lot more. But I do want you to get that foundation. In the last episode, I discussed a more usable definition of narcissism, and it doesn't rely so heavily on clinical terms or official diagnoses. I also covered the childhood experiences that are typical for people with high narcissistic wounding. And I covered the qualities that kind of take someone over that threshold and make them unsafe to be in a relationship with. While they may not actually have narcissistic personality disorder, they may be very unhealthy to be in relationship with. So, as we discussed, a person with narcissistic patterns doesn't need to meet DSM-5 criteria in order to be toxic and unhealthy for being in a relationship with. As a quick refresher, people with toxic levels of narcissistic wounding, what I again will be calling the narcissist, they'll tend to have the following behaviors. These are the hallmark behaviors. They will rarely take meaningful accountability for anything. They'll see themselves as the victim of most situations. They'll lack the ability to see your perspective as valid, and they'll always undermine it, or typically. And they'll primarily attend to the needs of others only to the extent that it will get them their own needs met, that they can get what they want out of the person. Now, please understand, I'm not saying that someone has to do all of these things at 100% of the time. These are the overall trends. This is that person you don't feel like you can bring an issue to because they're going to dodge, deflect, or punish you for doing that. So, if you find yourself relating to someone like this, I'm afraid to tell you, here's my really brutal take on the whole situation. And I know not every therapist would agree with this. I believe it's time to reconsider the relationship at all. And I know this is going to raise a lot of distress for many of you, and I totally get it. In fact, some of you are thinking, seriously, Tatiana, this isn't just some old t-shirt I can just discard. And I understand that. I agree. But I also want you to understand that the likelihood of having a positive and undamaging relationship with this person is next to nil. And that's the key word I want you to focus on here, undamaging. Narcissists are damaging to the people they are closest to. They let you down. They extract from you. They make you think you need to be better to earn care and safety. They make you feel crazy, and then you go in these circles. If I just try harder, if I just say it another way, if I was just kinder, maybe I could finally get them to change. Maybe I could finally get a different outcome. And ultimately, they just create so much instability that it's crazy making. You become so desperate for any good times to the point that you now elevate them in your mind, which ultimately diminishes the harm of the bad times. So you're actually kind of making a delusional concept of who this person is, because the good times can be so good, but they're also so rare that you start becoming so thirsty for them that you inflate them. So the problem is, this may feel very normal to many of us, but it's not healthy, and it's honestly just prolonging our trauma because it's another version of our original trauma. Because I assure you that you're in this pattern because it was familiar at some point in your development. People who did not experience this do not find themselves in this situation in most cases. But remember, familiar feels safe because of its familiarity, but it doesn't mean that it actually is safe. Now, let's back up a second. I know I said it's time to rethink the relationship altogether, but I'm not saying that you should just up and leave this person. I'm saying you'll want to communicate what you need to see in the relationship and find out if they are genuinely willing to meet you there. So if you were to present them with this, you could get a range of responses. But the only things I really want you to focus on when you're deciding your next step, whether you stay or whether you go, is this. It's about behaviors. Do they actually change their behaviors? And that it can include their responses to accountability or victimhood. And do the changes in their behaviors last long term? We all know this. If we've been in relationships with a narcissist, of course, at some point when they realize you're serious or you're ready to go, they go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm going to change. Oh my gosh. And then it lasts for like 2 to 4 weeks. And it's heaven again. By the way, they just totally got you to buy into the system again because you're like, yes, this feels so good. I'm going to come back for more and more and more. It's an addictive response, by the way. We will need to talk about love addiction after this. But I am afraid you will find consistency and real change lacking in someone with high narcissistic wounding, which is your immediate sign that it's time to start moving on. This is not let me give them one more chance. No, this is who they are. Believe them. That is one of my favorite quotes. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. If they are someone who can lash out and become violently cruel with you, even if that's just emotionally, and sees you as the enemy as soon as you start fighting, that is who they have inside of them, and they need to do deep, deep, deep work to change that. If they are someone who does not take accountability, that is who they are, okay? Yes, theoretically they can change, but right now, that is who they are. Believe them. It is not going to change. It is not your problem to fix. It is not a healthy dynamic to be in, okay? So again, I know you're saying, Tatiana, this isn't that simple. This is the father of my kids. This is my mother. They need my help right now. I say this with genuine compassion and care. That doesn't matter. You are not responsible for maintaining a relationship with someone who is harmful to you. Let me say that again. You are not responsible for maintaining a relationship with someone who is harmful to you. They are an adult. They have the capacity to change how they treat you. You are not responsible for accepting it or changing them. And by the way, that harm is trickling down to your kids too, if you do have children. Whether it's in watching the way your mother treats you or the way your husband manipulates you, by allowing it, you're also teaching your children that it's okay to be treated this way. And I assure you, they will find themselves in similar relationships someday because you've normalized it. How do you think you got in this position? Seriously, it's so simple. Once we see it as normal, we accept it. So even if it's as sad as you have an elderly sick parent that needs you theoretically, but they harmed you with all their narcissistic behavior throughout your life, and they're still not changing that. It's truly sad that they're infirm now that they need care, but it's still not your responsibility to expose yourself to re-traumatization because this person is not well. There are other ways to ensure that they're getting their care needs met, and you can limit your contact to protect your sanity. If you're enjoying this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening. It helps the show grow so that we can create even more content to help you and others build an extraordinary life. So here's my take on what you need to do with people who treat you in this narcissistic, inconsistent way. First, you tell them what the problem is and what you expect to see moving forward. You're not asking them to be somebody different. You're telling them, I will only relate to people who treat me this way. I am expecting this level of treatment. Now, If they don't show genuine interest in that, and it doesn't mean they immediately respond, they might need a day or so to respond. But if they don't show genuine interest, move on. It's time. They answered your question. A lack of an answer is an answer. Do not give them days, weeks, months to even respond to that question. Please understand, a lack of a response is a response. It's a lack of care. Okay. You would never leave somebody who is genuinely asking you a question essentially on red. You would get back to them. You would give them an answer. But if they say that they're interested in changing and you can tell there's some genuine care and concern in that, okay, give them what you need, but give them a structured amount of time. And during that time, you are watching for consistent change. And then you watch. That's it. And I'm not saying you watch for 2 years. I'm saying you watch for a month at first. And if they're making the change, you watch for 2 months. And then if they're making that change, you watch for 4 months, and so on and so forth. And there comes a point where you see that this person has changed. Great. And you don't need to keep watching theoretically. You're always making sure someone treats you with dignity and respect though, right? Now let's say you're watching and the change doesn't happen or it doesn't stick. It's time you leave. It's time. You're done. And when I say change, I mean you need to see those 4 pillars change that we talk about. They need to be able to take accountability. They can't be the victims of everything. They need to honestly see their part in things. They need to have the ability to establish a shared reality based on facts during conflict with you, where they're not just like denying your reality. And they need to start showing genuine care for others that isn't tied to something they're going to get out of the person. Do not stay in a relationship with people who do not meet these standards. They are harming you when they do that. But, okay, here's the but. There's a tricky part here. Many of us still have to interact with toxic people for a variety of reasons, right? Oftentimes it's for co-parenting. Other times, maybe it's our coworkers or our bosses. Maybe it's a family member and we have to go to family events. Maybe it's a neighbor. Maybe it's even like a best friend's partner or something like that. And you're just like, oh, why don't they leave? First off, send them this episode, please. Actually start with the last one and then this one. But there are so many possibilities of times when we do have to have some sort of interaction with a narcissist, right? Or I find this a lot with my clients. They need these tools that I'm about to give you just to leave the relationship, because there are a lot of boundaries that need to get set in just the leaving. So let's get started with the rules of how to manage interactions with a narcissist when you have to manage them. All right. Number 1, this is my favorite rule of all time. By the way, it applies to everybody, but especially a narcissist. Don't ever try to convince them of your boundary, your perspective, your reality. You are going to be run in circles. You don't need someone to believe your perspective in order to act upon it. They don't need to agree with your boundary for you to hold it. But I promise you, they will spend hours talking you in circles, making you prove your point so that they can avoid the accountability. I don't know if any of you have heard of Jefferson Fisher. Really great podcast. He is, I believe, an attorney, and he focuses on how to speak to difficult people. Oh, love his stuff. Go check it out. But he calls this dynamic digging holes. So you bring an issue forward to the narcissist and they deflect by digging a hole in your argument. So instead of actually staying on your point, you find yourself trying to fill in the hole and prove your argument instead of actually saying, no, that's not the point. I need you to focus on this. So you never actually get them to hold accountability. So when you set a boundary or decide on something, you don't wait on agreement to hold the decision. You hold the decision. You know what the consequence is. So here's a great example. Your partner called you names when you were fighting and you're like, nope, not going to happen. Your old way of managing that is you go up to them and you're like, hey, I don't think it was very nice for you to call me names. I don't want you to talk to me like that anymore. And guess what? They're immediately going to go into a cycle of, I wasn't mean to you. What are you talking about? And some people call each other names and haven't you ever done that before? And blah, 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 blah. They're just deflecting and they're trying to make you prove that they were even mean to you in the first place, or that calling names is inappropriate, or that they even called you names. Can you see how many stories they could come up around this? Yeah, don't waste your time. Here's the new way. When you call me names or disrespect me, I will leave the room or I will hang up the phone until you can control yourself. That's it. And you do it. The next time they go into that mode, you hang up, you leave the room, you disengage. There's no choice. You're not asking them to agree with you that it's not okay to do that. You're not asking them to agree with you that they even do that. You've decided your limit and you know what you'll do now. If you haven't listened to the episode on boundaries, also please do that. It will really help you to understand this whole idea. Okay. Also, in terms of that whole don't try to convince them concept, deal only in reality and facts. And if they don't want to do that, you disengage. Again, one of your greatest powers here is to disengage. Oh, P.S. want to warn you, a narcissist will use therapy terms to say that you are now stonewalling them or you're like giving them silent treatment when you disengage. You're going to have to hold your own reality there and realize, no, stonewalling is disengaging and not coming back to it and punishing someone else. Disengaging from a strategic perspective is saying, I will engage with you once you stop doing this harmful thing. Very different thing. Again, don't try to convince them. You can just say, oh, I hear you're saying that I'm stonewalling you, but I'm actually just disengaging until you stop that abusive behavior. When you're done, I'll be back. That's it. So if they only want to talk about their perception of reality, not actual reality and facts, it has no basis in reality. Maybe they're projecting their own stuff onto the circumstance. I want you to disengage. You're not talking to someone who's being fair or real at this point. There's literally nothing you can accomplish now. You can't communicate with someone who doesn't want to find a common reality with you. And also, that just goes to show that they've made you their enemy. They don't want a common reality. They don't want you guys to find a solution together. They want to see you as the enemy. That is so fundamental to narcissistic dynamics. They cannot understand that you're on the same team. And I realize we all struggle with that to a certain extent when we're in an argument with someone. But if you aren't in a narcissistic state, you can at least come around to that and understand, no, I do want to find a common reality because I want to find a solution so that we can come together again. Not that I beat you down until you acquiesce and make me feel more powerful or feel safer. Okay. Doing this will also limit the likelihood of reactive abuse. This whole, don't try to convince them. You got to do that to limit the chance that you will engage in reactive abuse. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, reactive abuse, it's where the narcissist harms you like over an extended period of time to the point that you eventually blow up on them. And this is, I've been there. It is the worst feeling ever because you do suddenly look and feel like the crazy person. And they love it because now they look at you and go, see, you're the problem. I have to deal with you. You're screaming at me. You're calling me names. You just threw something. You're out of control. Look at you. They love when that happens. So the solution is to stop letting this person harm you, even to the point that you will now blow up and lose control of who you really are. Okay, so that's rule number 1. Stop trying to convince them. Stop trying to convince them of your boundaries, of your reality, of your validity, of your feelings. Just act on what you know is true. And this is going to take a lot of internal awareness and self-compassion and validation. You are used to seeking that outside of yourself, and I want you to start just going, no, if an objective observer looked at this, this would not be okay. And I know that that's true, even if this person is telling me it's not. It is true, and I'm going to act upon it. Okay. Step number 2, I want you to only offer choices that you're okay with. Okay. Don't give them the power to decide everything. So let's say you're working with a difficult coworker. This is a really simple solution, and you need to meet for a project. I don't want you to text them or IM them or whatever it is and say, hey, when's a good time for you? No, you're going to text them, hey, here are 2 times that work for me. Which one do you prefer? Right there, that's probably going to solve a lot of your problems. I have used this strategy numerous times, and I'm going to self-disclose one of them here. In order to transfer my children with my co-parent, we were at a point where we were living quite far away from each other, almost an hour away from each other. And the location we were exchanging the kids at was definitely not equidistant. It was much further for me. So I wanted to make that more fair for my drive time. I found a spot that was objectively equidistant in terms of driving time, and I Googled it and everything. But I knew there was going to be pushback because this suddenly was more fair to him or more fair to me and less easy for him. So I proposed it, and of course it was denied. So then I said, okay, well then I'll fall back on the option of whoever is collecting the kids will have to drive to the other person's house. And as you can imagine, that would mean now he has to drive equally to me. And suddenly my first proposition sounded a lot more appealing, and we were able to agree on that. I didn't say, hey, could we do that or stick with what we already have? I said, here are the two options I'm willing to do moving forward. Done. Okay. That then moves us into the third one. I want you to use the legal system and social pressure to enforce what you know is fair. Don't rely on their word or their goodwill. Okay. So in that circumstance of changing the drop-off point, I could theoretically have taken that to an attorney or something. I probably wasn't going to, but if I were to bring it to a third party or say a mediator, it would have been obvious that my two propositions were much more fair and we were going to have to go with one of them. So when this person really isn't agreeing with you in reality, I want you to use all of the resources at your disposal, whether that's law enforcement, whether that's the legal system, whether that's doing it in public so that they don't behave out of control. And I've got to say this to all the parents out there. Always write a parenting plan and get a judge's signature on it. Please do not rely on their word, because I promise you're going to end up as their backup babysitter. And that was another issue I faced. Oh, I just can't make it to pick up the kids. I have something. Oh, that's too bad. Sounds like you need to get a babysitter. I'm not your backup babysitter, and I will enforce this. Okay? Because we're allowed to have our own lives too. We're allowed to make doctor's appointments. We're allowed to go out with our friends. We're allowed to go on vacation. We will not be the backup babysitter for the narcissist who does not want to show up or finds that their priorities are much higher priority than ours. That's not for them to decide. We have something in writing. It's legally agreed upon. It's valid, and I'm going to enforce it. If you love what you're hearing and you're ready to take your life to the next level, consider working with me one-on-one. I can see clients located in Arizona, Minnesota, and Ohio. Imagine where you could be 1 year from now if you start your healing journey today. Another option is to use mediators, like I mentioned. You know how badly this person can behave behind closed doors, so bring them into the light and see how different the end results can be. Also use the court system to get fair and reasonable parenting time and child support and alimony or whatever else is appropriate for your circumstance. Don't try to be nice by letting them pay you what they can or what they promise or to pick up the kids when they say they have time. Don't hope that they'll buy you out of your portion of the house. You have legal rights. Use them. This is not that you're trying to threaten them or take advantage of them. You're just saying, I know you're not somebody who's going to be consistently fair. You might agree to it in this moment, whatever, but I know you won't actually follow through on it. And really, I don't want you to trust anybody to follow through on it. I agree with the whole theory that if you're going to marry someone who, by the way, you don't want a divorce from, who you obviously see the best in, you should probably still do a prenup because, oh gosh, I forgot the name of the attorney who talks about this. You can either write one for yourself or you can default to the state's version of a prenup. You have one either way. Write it for yourself. So this isn't even about like seeing the worst in someone to use a legal system. It's just to say, hey, when things get cloudy because we're overwhelmed with emotions, I want to make sure this is written down and it's supported by someone outside of us. And I can enforce it then. Okay? You have the right to financial stability and free time. Like I said, you're not their backup babysitter. So put everything into the courts and document when they don't follow through. I also want to say, I understand that this may sound very expensive, but it's going to save you energy and time in the long run. And I can tell you firsthand that I went through my entire divorce and custody plan with zero expenses beyond like the filing fees, which were pretty negligible. And I was a broke mother of two very young children, no job. I had to use free legal services, and I was on federal benefits at the time to get on my feet. I filled out all the forms in pencil. I think I used printers at the library. I did have that free legal consult at the law library in my city. And it was all done correctly and quickly. Now, I know that some people could make this very difficult for you, but I do really encourage you to use the law. Don't let them intimidate you into acquiescing, okay? All right, final note. Conduct high-tension sessions or meetings in public spaces to limit their erratic or cruel comments and behaviors, okay? All right, so that's all following under Use the legal system and social pressure to enforce what is fair. The next one is, I want you to only interact as needed. Treat this relationship like a business. This might apply to seeing your dad only at holiday gatherings, and you're polite and socially appropriate. You don't have to ingratiate yourself to him. You don't have to go check on him. You don't have to be super friendly. You don't have to tell him any damn thing about your life. Please don't, except for surface stuff that anybody else could know. Spend as little time around him as possible, but be socially appropriate. If you're co-parenting with someone, this is usually the most common one because you do have to have regular contact. Limit it to written forms, so text or email, and keep all of them saved. And only talk about what's needed for the children, not, I don't like the way you rolled your eyes at me last week. Leave it. It doesn't matter. They love that bothered you, by the way. Do not give them that pleasure. Don't talk about feelings. Don't talk about drama. Don't talk about anything else except for facts and planning about the children. And this leads to another important aspect of this rule. Disengage when they behave poorly again. Do you see a theme here? Disengage, disengage, disengage. Okay? This is your power. Stop responding. Block them. Hang up. Leave the room. Whatever the situation calls for, disengage. Okay? I remember how empowering this was for me the first time I used it. And I'll be honest, the idea of this never occurred to me before then. Okay. I remember it so vividly. I was standing in a Trader Joe's trying to do my grocery shopping on that ridiculously limited budget that I had. I literally would walk around with a calculator, by the way, to add up what I was buying to make sure I had enough money for this batch of groceries before getting to the front and finding out in embarrassment that I didn't have it. I'm standing in Trader Joe's and my ex is yelling at me over the phone, and I'm probably cussing as well. And I told him to stop and he didn't. So I just hung up the phone. And I'm telling you, that had never occurred to me before. And I'm telling you, things were so different after that. He understood that if he got out of line, I would just disengage. And it saved me so much drama. Not all the drama, of course, but that was a huge step. I also want to make it clear that I am not recommending anything to listeners that I haven't done myself. As many of you know, I had to leave the father of my children for all the reasons that I enumerated in my very first episode. And I had a 6-month-old baby and a 3-year-old and no job. And I was just recovering from back surgery. Like I said, I was on federal benefits to survive. I also don't have a relationship with my own father because of his harmful treatments. And it took me years to take both of these steps, guys. As I just mentioned, I didn't understand that I had other options. But I don't want any of you to stay stuck for as long as I did. And I'm not saying it will be easy. I'm telling you, this was terrifying for me. And it took many attempts with both of these relationships to actually really leave and really be done with it. And also really disengage even from the harm that could come afterwards, after disengaging. But it's so valuable. It is the hardest thing I've ever done, but I know that life for you can be infinitely better on the other side. And I know it from my own personal experience. And I know it from helping so many clients through similar transformations. It is so much freer and better on the other side. So let's cover the last tool. I want you to get help. Don't try to do this on your own. Find a good therapist. Rely on trusted friends and family members. By the way, this is not the time to rely on that codependent friend who also lives a similar dynamic in their relationships. He, she, they're going to end up giving you very soft advice. They're going to enable you to stay in the relationship and make excuses for this person, okay? You need to find friends. You need to talk to friends who have healthy relationships or have good boundaries, okay? But really find a good therapist. Use community resources like low-cost mental health services. They exist, okay? Find free legal advice. Go even just talk to an attorney. So many attorneys will do a free consultation. Write down all your questions about, can I get bought out of the house? What are my rights to, my children? What are my rights to alimony? What can he do in this situation? Is this going to be scary for me? Ask an attorney and find out what your choices are. These services are amazing and they can help you completely change your life, just knowing what your options are. Sign up for job descriptions on Indeed and Google Jobs. Let yourself know that there are other things that exist out there. Let's say you're financially scared. See if you can start earning more. give yourself all of these options, but get support from outside resources. And as always, if you are in a truly abusive relationship, maybe a dangerously abusive relationship, I want you to reach out to minimum a therapist and hopefully some sort of a women's shelter and get the support that you need in that case. Okay. By the way, women's shelters are also available to men who are being abused. Please do not think that you have to be a woman to use these resources. Okay. All right. So let's review these ground rules one last time. This is if you have to interact with a narcissist, usually in the instance that you're leaving them. So there will be interaction during that process, or someone you have to have an ongoing minimal relationship with. So again, number one, don't ever try to convince them that your perspective is valid. Just act upon it. Know what your boundary is and then act on your boundary. Number two, only offer choices that you're okay with. Do not give them the power to decide everything anymore. Number three, use the legal system and social pressure to enforce what is fair. Do not rely on their word. Please, for the love of God, do not do that. They will promise you the world and deliver squat. Number four, only interact as needed and use your power move to disengage. Yes, you can re-engage once they are behaving appropriately. You are not stonewalling them. You are not silent treatmenting them. You are not even punishing them. You are just saying, I will not be treated this way. And when you treat me this way, I am unavailable. Okay. Number five, and the final one, is to get help. Get support. Do not do this on your own. This is one of the hardest things you will ever do. I almost feel emotional as I say this. I do feel emotional. It is terrifying to leave a narcissist. When you've been trained to orient yourself this way, you start to question your reality so insanely that you really don't trust yourself anymore. Not only do you not trust your perception, you don't trust your capacity to support yourself and to be on your own. So again, that means you need to get help. I really hope this framework gives you the tools and courage you need to start protecting yourself from someone harmful. And something I want to make clear again is that you cannot get someone to change. One of the many reasons that narcissists rarely do change is because the people around them continue to allow it and to stay, which means I allow it. I might yell at you. I might tell you I don't want it, but I continue to stay, which at the end of the day is a message of, that's okay. I'll keep letting you treat me this way. So I don't want you to be that person anymore. I want you to expect better for yourself. And I definitely want you to show better and expect better for your children if you have them, because they will repeat what they see you do. That includes leaving someone harmful. They will repeat that as well, which means they'll also understand they have the right to leave that neglectful or abusive parent eventually when they're ready, and you can protect them more from a position of being stable in your own home. Let me just say for a brief moment, I'm emotional. The woman my children would know today, if I had stayed, is vastly different than the woman they know now. I couldn't become her under those circumstances, and I couldn't show them how powerful they are if I had stayed. They got to have a healthy relationship with me because I was able to heal and become calm and grounded and present with them and trust myself. So be that for your kids. But at minimum, be that for yourself. That's all for today, everyone. That one got me. Remember, you deserve the world. Let's create that. Stop chasing and start choosing. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Resourced Podcast. My hope is that you learned at least one practical tool you can apply to your life today to move in the direction of your dreams. If you found this content helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and consider subscribing to my email list, which is linked in the show notes. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. What step will you take today?